Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Chai Chat podcast. I'm joined by my co-host Raza, Naqvi, and Mahdi, and today we have a very special guest to share his experiences with you all. We have an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, Brother Azam Jaafri. Welcome, Brother Azam. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam rahmatullah.
How are you, bro?
Good. We're obviously in the middle of Corona right now, which is quite a unique time. But alhamdulillah, I'm a firm believer that we are given opportunities sometimes in scenarios that we may not always expect or assume to be, ideal for us. But there's always a chance to take advantage. So I'm making the most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, ideally we would have loved to have done this in person as well, and have you in our studio and filmed it properly. But you got to make the most of the world that you're living in, right? So it's
adapt with the times, I guess.
100%. No, and I agree, and I think it's really important. I think it's one of the great things you can do at this point in time, is to do this sort of the Zoom podcasting and keep putting out content and putting out positive things for people to take in over this time, because not everyone is often dealing with it in the same way that you are. So if you have that chance to help, then it's great.
Yeah, I think when we were discussing with the team about who to invite, and I was very, supportive of bringing yourself on, especially, during a time like this, we need some positivity, and you're very, proactive in promoting, good well-being, good health, good wealth, and it would be very, very useful, I think, to the community and to the public out there, just to, get a few tips from you and see what keeps you busy, what keeps you ticking. Hopefully we can take some of that proactiveness and implement it for ourselves as well. So we're looking forward to see what we're discussing.
Yeah, inshallah. So just to kick off the discussion very quickly, I know you from my research and my experiences with viewing the work that you've been doing in the past maybe 5-6 years or so. I know you've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years now. But just to people that may not know of you and may not have heard of you as of yet, maybe in a quick couple of minutes, could you summarize for us how you started off as in being an entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm.
What was it that really got you into creating your own first business? What was it? And then we'll take it from there.
Sure. So my grandmother actually used to always tell people stories that from a young age, I had this fascination with money. And I would basically, as kids, we would get money to go and buy sweets. And I would know that everyone else would go and buy loads of sweets and always have loads left over. So I'd just wait for everyone to get done with what they wanted. I'd have the rest and I'd save my money. And then I'd go to my grandma and I'd sort of say, look, I've got these notes. Can I have bigger notes? So I used to like collecting the bigger notes. So we used to live in Kenya at this time. And so you had these shilling notes, which 100 shillings, 200, 500. So, there was then this occasion where we were all out and, my grandmother had forgot her purse. And she's like, oh, no, I need to pay for something. I don't have any money. And I'm like, oh, I've got some cash with me. And she's like, how have you got cash? You're like a little kid. And I'm like, no, I saved the money. So she goes, always had this fascination with money and saving and all this sort of stuff. So I think for me, I always say to everybody, one thing is that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Not everyone is entrepreneurial. You can operate and run a business, no doubt, but I think this is something that certain people are built with, the same way some people have, artistic skills and poetry skills and other types of skills. Other people are great academically in different ways. So it was always a passion. So even growing up, I always was trying to buy and sell and do things. And even when I passed my driving test, the first car that I bought was actually a van. I got a little Postman Pat van, ex-Postman Pat van. And I started a little courier business. So within the network of friends that we had in family, I would say like, look, I'll deliver your package, wherever you want, type of thing. And then from that point, being from a, Asian family, parents are like, go get a degree and do this, that, and the other, whatever. And, I just sort of managed to convince them to say, look, it's businesses for me. This is what I want to do. And at the time, this was like 99, the property market was about to sort of, change, which I never knew. But I was like, look, I want to buy and sell houses. I want to buy and renovate houses. And I just happened to get into the property market at that time when the market boomed. I didn't really know what I was doing as such, but just it was a timing thing. And then from there, just progressively built and saved, which is a key thing I think I'll talk about in this talk, in this podcast, but just saved and reinvested, ventured into new areas, discovered e-commerce, from e-commerce, built several e-commerce businesses, discovered, other areas and other opportunities where I could add value. And just fast forward to where we are today, I'm at a stage where I feel that everything I'm trying to do entrepreneurially has to give some value, add some value to society. So through the vehicles that we create in business, they need to have some sort of positive impact, create some positive change. So that's about a quick summary of being a kid now.
So I want to touch on something you said. So you said, obviously, your parents were like, you have to go to get a degree, and that's quite a thing with Asian parents. Even my parents, they're very sort of encouraging and demanding that you need to go get an education because they've worked hard, they've been labourers, and they so there's a sort of stigma associated. If you don't get a degree, you're going to be sort of grafting all your life and doing sort of as they call it, like the dirty work. So how was it in terms of convincing your parents that you didn't want to pursue sort of mainstream education, go to university?
Yeah, so I think the one key advice that I give to everybody in this scenario is, look, don't look at this as an excuse to not study or to not do anything, right? So it's very easy to blag your way into like, oh, I don't want to go to uni, I don't want to study because I'm going to do business or whatever. But I really feel that if you are genuinely passionate about what it is you want to do and you believe in it and you're going to commit to it, then I think that you will over time manage to persuade them it's the right thing, even if in the beginning they don't believe it. And if you're in a situation where they're adamant and they're saying, look, you've got to study, then what you've got to do is find a way to do what you want to do alongside that. And so we have a very different mentality in this part of the world towards time and how much you can and can't do. The reality is you've got long days, and even when I always like to go back to our teachings and our narrations, but if you go back to what the imams say about sleep, we're not supposed to do that much of it. So what are we supposed to be doing? And so the reality is that yes, if you are sure about what it is you want to do and what you want to pursue and where you believe you can add the most value, where you believe you can do the best, then it's about proving it, and it's that's kind of the key thing. So I put my head down, worked hard, and eventually my parents saw that, okay, well, look, this is what he does, this is what he's better at. He's able to provide for his family, he's able to do the things that we want him to do. But people will always tell you what they know.
Do you come from a family of entrepreneurs or?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, that obviously would have made it a little bit easier for me because we are a family of entrepreneurs. And, my grandmother, she was a doctor, but my, dad and my uncles and everybody, they all were in business. But as I said, I think it's more about, being sure about what it is you want to do so that when you are making those kind of decisions, there's a way for you, I always say this, when you're confident and sincere in what you want to do and you have a real cause and a purpose, it's easier to convince those people around you, right? It always is. It's always a little bit easier. If you're a bit flaky, then everyone else is going to be feeling a bit the same, and it's kind of not probably going to go the way you want.
Yeah, that's definitely true because you see that. So around the kids that we work with and we know around the community that we work with in Manchester, but there's a big passion for, look, I want to start a business, I want to do this, I want to do that, but there isn't enough of a drive for them to really go and prove the idea, prove the model, and then take the leap, rather than everyone wants to take the leap before actually.
So everyone can talk the talk, but
I think often what people want to see, what parents want to see or elders want to see is something already set up or proven that it is going to work. It's very easy to say, I want to get into business, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to do this and that. Apart from the going down the usual route of going into university, medicine, engineering, etc. It's very difficult to kind of prove yourself that you are fit for this kind of way of being an entrepreneur. So from your experience, did you have anything that you probably had set up already? So when you got to that stage where you had to convince your parents, you had some sort of backing, whether it be savings, whether it be an initial business that you had already set up or something like that?
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. So I'd saved money up doing stuff part-time while I was, sort of studying, and I also carried on doing a bit of both to the point where I could justify my transition to just doing the one thing. It's about commitment and sacrifice. As you said, bro, there's a lot of glamorization of entrepreneurship, and people are, they think, oh, I want to be rich, or I want to be this and I want to be that. And there's lots of motivation coming from sources that is a bit misleading. So if you genuinely have an idea or a concept or a project, just as an example, when I moved into the property business in the area that we were in, it was just a coincidence that there was a lot of rundown, dilapidated property, but the area wasn't so bad. So I was like, Dad, look, there's all these houses. Let me buy some of these and, do it. But I had money saved up myself as well. So at that time you could buy houses for like 15 grand. The first one I bought was 20K. So, I think the key piece of advice is that know your reasons. You have to know your why. Why is it I want to do this? Why is it I want to do that? And so if it's just, I've seen someone driving a Lamborghini and I like the look of this and I like the look of that and I want to be rich. That's no one's going to buy that, and it's most likely not going to happen, so that's kind of, I think, the key thing, that you have to, put some skin in the game. We call that, in the business world, we have this skin in the game. It basically means that, you put some money on the line, you put something on the line, right? So I think young people don't understand that, the skin in the game element, and they don't understand the real sacrifice. It's very hard to succeed in business, and it requires a certain type of mindset, and you have to have a certain real underlying passion and driving force for what it is you're doing to succeed. Otherwise, it's just more and more and more difficult.
So when you have an idea, so what do you do to take it from sort of initial idea to like implement it and then to execute it? So do you have a sort of like a fail-safe method in your head in which how you approach things and how you approach ideas?
And before you answer that, just a quick point from it's related to the question that Raza just asked. So you must have some sort of a fail-safe, but also it's starting a business. It can leave someone really financially insecure. You're putting a lot into it. You're putting, especially if it's your main source of income and you're dedicating your entire sort of waking hours to it. And you're not really getting income from anywhere else. You're putting it all on the line. That insecurity really stops people from starting the business in the first place, typically. But once you get over that, how do you get over that? And then secondly, if you don't, how do you sort of put yourself back together to say, okay, it didn't work, we can go again?
Sure. So the answer to your first question is, it's funny, I read something the other day that said that entrepreneurs don't take risks, whereas everyone's like, entrepreneurs are the risk takers. And the reason they don't take risks is because they really believe in what they're going to do is going to work, right? So, and this is why I always say there's a differentiation between true entrepreneurship and people that are, fantasizing or winging it, right? And that's a whole conversation in itself to describe how that is or what that is. But for people who are real entrepreneurs by nature, they identify an opportunity, they see the opportunity, they understand the market, they understand the consumer, they know what they want to deliver, and they're super passionate about adding that value, right? They will take risks, they will do whatever it takes. When you're like, I like my life, I like the comfort of my life, I like my salary, I like my job, I like my hours, I like my sick pay, holidays, all the rest of it, then, ultimately, you're probably going to be thinking, do I want to put my life on the line? And actually, you probably don't have anything that significant that you think is going to change the game or is going to change your life or other people's lives. So you probably steer away from the idea of doing that. However, the world of business is risk, and it's that risk that differentiates the difference between someone making millions every year and someone making thousands every year. That's the reality. But one is that, you either have some, I know people that have no other choice. So, going into some sort of business is what they have to do. There are people who really know they want to change the game. They have an opportunity. They know something. They've studied something, whatever it might be. And then when it gets into the idea of being in the world of business, bro, I think again, you have to be built differently. You know, it's the same thing as, I always give analogy of a boxer going in a fight, right? You know, if you haven't trained, if you haven't took a punch before, you haven't done any sparring, you know, when you get whacked, you're gonna feel it. And so business is conditioning, it's mental conditioning. I mean, life is a mental game in itself, but business is all that kind of mental conditioning. You've got to be ready to ride it out. If you don't have the capability to take on stress, or, you know, you can't handle pressure, you can't handle the idea of things going wrong, then it's not the right place to be, you know, because it's not an easy world, man. Entrepreneurship is not a place you go and you just have a bit of fun and you fantasize and make, look, all this facade you see on social media, it's nonsense, man. Like, you know, 4 out of 5 businesses fail. You know, most businesses fail, man. Like, they don't make money. That, you know, you might look at things like, it's all easy for you and me, us 4 or 5, to go out and raise some money right now and go, oh wow, look at them, they are tech startup of the year and we haven't made 50p. I'll show you so many companies that can't even make 50 pence, bro. They don't make 50 pence, you know, and they've raised millions of pounds. So that's the scenario there. In terms of going to the question around the sort of the plan, I think, you know, there's risk in everything, but as my career and my experience has gone on, and I think this is the key thing, because, you know, somebody like messaged me the other day and asked me a question, said, oh, you know, this is your area of expertise. I don't particularly think I'm an expert in anything as such, but one thing I am is I have an interest in people, and I have an interest in people's behavior, in people's needs, in people's desires, wants. And so when I plan anything, I plan it according to that. So if you go back to when I was early started in the property business, I started developing homes for first-time buyers that were more unique and bespoke, and they could tailor them a little bit more to their own desire and taste preferences, compared to what you would get from a typical Barrett's home or whatever, where they'd just be standard magnolia walls, you know, boom, boom, boom. So, you know, we created this more affordable but slightly more customized home, first-time buyer homes whenever I develop a site. You know, moving on from that, you know, I was one of the first to start doing heavy building products online. And again, I saw an opportunity where I was like, look, people don't, you know, when you go online, you can't find prices, you can't, you know, get quotes, you can't just place an order and get it delivered, but you can do this for lots of other products. And, you know, and so everything that I've done has always been this idea of what is it people really want? And, you know, does it add up to create this product or service for these people, you know? And that's basically it. So everything is based around that. You know, when your focus is on, I want to make X amount of money, I've seen the guy next door open a pizza shop, so I'm opening a pizza shop, and then he's going to open a kebab shop, and, you know, we're all just lining up the shops next to each other, then there's nothing there, right? But if you feel like there's going to be change, like even now, like guys, like one very important point that I'll make is, you know, I was always raised and geared for good and bad times. And we were always raised to save, right? You know, save your money. And so when these times come, these are actually the prime time. These are the opportunity times. So everyone can make money in the good times, but you make the real money now. So in this era and this climate, which is, you know, not going to be any more extreme than crashes and things that we've had before, I'm pretty confident that maybe it might be a little bit more, but the world's going to carry on. But ultimately, what happens now is there is going to be a change and a shift from, because of coronavirus, there's going to be a shift in lots of different things that are going to happen, i.e. look at this, right? So, you know, I've been in business 20 years, bro. I've now started doing calls and things, and, you know, I've been obviously doing it for a while, but, you know, this whole technological revolution is now changing the way we do things, the way we interact. So it's looking for these opportunities to see what is the world going to be like next, and what's the next thing? You know, what's the next opportunity? How are we going to consume? How are we going to interact? How are we going to do things? So, you know, but it's about, really key thing is focusing on who you're trying to serve. Business is about servicing people. So if you meet someone and they're like, oh, I want to do something, you know, I always say to people, all right, give me your customer profile. Who are you helping? Who are they? What do they want? What do they need? How much income do they have? And when people can't answer those questions, you know that it's a fantasy. You know they're thinking about themselves.
Not done their homework. So how do you, so you've talked about the difficult times, and, you know, you will have your ups and you will have your downs. So now that we're going through Corona, so sort of how have you managed to absorb that? Sort of how have you set up, and how do you deal with the stresses and the difficulties that you're facing? And sort of what advice will you give for other businesses?
Yeah, sure. So to give you an insight, one of our companies is seeing 200 to 300% increase in sales because people are at home and we supply a home-based product. We've had to close the gym, but which is fine. We again structure our businesses in a way where we don't, have a concern with, being heavily in debt or anything of that type. I am in the process currently of, we were in the process of acquiring new sites. So the plan for Graftism as a gym brand is to open gyms all over the UK and around the world. And these gyms will be more community type hubs and culture based hubs, as opposed to gyms where you go and you don't talk to anyone and meet anyone. It's about cultivating real relationships offline rather than online. So I'm assuming that there will probably be lots more acquisition opportunities once this is over. Then it's a question of, in terms of, generally in business is again, and it's like, I wanted to talk about more of this after the coronavirus happened. So I don't want to sound like I'm what's a nice word to use, but it's just giving you a little bit of an insight into the fact that if you're prepared for this sort of stuff, bro, then it's not a surprise, right? So if you live your life in the mindset that, I'm balling, I'm living life, I'm buying Louboutins and Choutons and everything else every day, and I have no money, and all of a sudden all my money stops coming in, well, you'd be all right if you'd not bought 5 Louboutins and maybe just bought one, and you had some money in the bank, and then you could ride it out for a bit. So I think the key thing with this is, from a financial business perspective, you have to expect there to be this and that, right? That's just normal. So if you expect that, when you're up here, you're preparing to say, well, there's going to probably be some little bits down here, and we need to be able to take the whole thing, right? We can't just be King Konging up here and, not having any, and dying down here, right? And I'm quite real when I talk about these things, bro, because one thing about business, and it's one thing that worries me, is that unlike becoming a medical professional, where you can't operate on someone, without years and years and years of education and training and, qualifications and assessment and whatever, you can just dive into the world of business, and you can, borrow money, and you can put people's livelihood at risk, and you can put your own livelihood at risk, and you can put thousands and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, at risk. I always feel that, people need a bit more of a reality check when it comes to what the world of business is about. So I think from our point of view, or my point of view, we are always prepared for both scenarios, good and bad. And we are aware of the fact that the opportunities exist in these times, right? So markets become overinflated, oversaturated. And so when it hits this point now is when it's the right time for...
You're primed and ready to go.
Yeah. So we will develop new businesses in this time. You can even go on YouTube. I mean, look, bro, I'm not that qualified or educated or that great to give that much information, but there's that much online that you will see that most of the people that are experienced, who've been around the game for the last 50, 60, 70 years, will tell you that, it's in these downtimes, recessions, depressions, etc., that it's the perfect time to start new businesses and to start new things. It's often a lot of a mindset thing. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an insight into what, I believe happens in these times. One is that people are not financially geared for it, right? So they haven't left any money in their business, or their business is not a strong enough business to sustain anything other than just the money they take out of the business every month to keep it running, if you get what I'm trying to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a financial issue. There's then the issue of operational, right? So you lose staff, whether you can get those staff back. You were probably struggling to keep your business on people's minds, keep people coming through the door. All this slows down. You don't know what's going to happen next. So they may be difficult to get your business back off the ground again. And then finally, it's the mental side of it, because business is all a mental thing, and so if you've been knocked psychologically, if you are, not feeling great about what's happened, you're all over the place, and getting yourself back on track is going to be tough. So another key thing here, is being mentally prepared to hit the ground running when you get back to whatever it is you're going to do. So that's basically the long and short of how I can explain how I'm dealing with it. I'm spending quality time with my kids. I'm basically reading more. I'm sleeping. Wow, bro, like sleep has been, I checked my Apple iPhone. I think the stats were all over the place. Like, what is this guy doing right now? Because I don't sleep that much. So I caught up on some sleep and, so I'm, just taking advantage, bro. I really feel, that we are always, Allah provides us with circumstances that are always to our advantage. It's just how we want to see it.
I mean, you can definitely say, or you can see from you that you are prepared with these unprecedented times. And just like your brand, the graft continues, even in these hard times, you just have to continue grafting, find these new business opportunities, which is what I want to kind of highlight on something now. What would you say are 3 key skills that a person could have in this kind of current climate or moving forward in the coming years? What 3 key skills that you would say would definitely help someone, looking to become an entrepreneur or opening up a business or, following in your footsteps, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about skills vary depending on the actual industry that you want to be in, right? So the kind of skill set that somebody who operates in the hospitality industry might need differs to the one who operates in pharmaceutical or whatever. So, I think in terms of, qualities, I think one is you need to be a realist, right? And what I mean by the term realist is pay attention to what is really going on, right? Business is very, very simple, right? And if you take Graftism as a gym brand as an example, I grew up training in bodybuilding style gyms. I like those type of gyms, but as the years went on, they became more and more deteriorated and dilapidated because they often were struggling to compete against some of the other big brands that have now come out, like the gym groups and the budget gyms and the other gyms. So it was difficult to reinvest in those businesses. But actually the community that trained in those gyms were the ones that were most in tune with all of the social media stuff. So actually they were the ideal hubs to be social media centric, culture centric, community centric hubs, because you already had those people there. They just weren't designed or geared or catered for that community. There's also a massive opportunity in those businesses, which was being missed as well. And that was, again, a lack of understanding of what the consumers want and their capability to spend, because people are fixated in what they've done for years gone. So when you spend time paying attention to people, you get to know what it is they really want. And I think this is, if I was to give anybody advice, if you have 500 people in your community, right, study what those people really want, research, find out. Even if you're going to open a burger shop, open the best burger shop that makes the best burgers, that gives, the best service, that has the best decor, and that makes the most money, right? But, that's the whole point. So we spend our time thinking, what do we want? Fantasizing about what are we going to do with all this money? Or we want to be an entrepreneur for the sake of saying an entrepreneur or whatever it is. Like, bro, I'm not even bothered about being called an entrepreneur. I have a very keen interest in people. I like to see what's happening. I spend a lot of time now analyzing, human behavior. Like, it cracks me up every day when, I see the images that they put on of the beer aisle in the supermarkets where they've left the Corona. It's like insane, bro. Like, it's like, I'm just baffled by the way people think or whatever. So one thing is to be realistic, right? When I say realistic or be in reality is, I'm trying to sell someone something. Let me know about this person. Let me find out what they want, right? The second thing, and the second key quality is patience, perseverance, and that comes in multiple forms. One of those forms is patience in you having the need to have everything you want now, right? When I first started out in business, bro, I made £250,000 in my first year in business at 20 years old. I used to drive around in a clapped out Peugeot 106. That basically what I found out later was only cheap because it was 2 cars welded together, right? So my uncle popped the bonnet on it once, right? Bless him. And he's like, Azam, this is welded, mate. And I was like, what do you mean it's welded? He goes, it's welded. It's like, this is 2 cars put together, right? So, so the point I'm making is that having that patience is key, because it allows you to persevere through those challenging times. It allows you to commit, you don't have these over kind of eccentric requirements and needs in life. You can just knuckle down and say, I'm going to focus, because building anything takes time. I might want Zayn to be 16 or 18 now, but he's 11. He's going to take another 5 years to get to that point, whether I like it or not. So the point is, that is one of the key areas. And the final key point I would emphasize is researching and knowledge, right? And that's researching and knowledge of areas that are very specific to what it is you want to do. So people often ask me, Azam, is having a mentor good? I said, well, I don't know what you want mentoring for. Like, if I want to develop myself spiritually, then I go to someone who can help me with spiritual development. If I want to go and develop myself in finance, then I go and speak to a finance guy, right? So, mentorship is all well and good if you're getting something from it that is going to be applicable to what it is you're trying to do, right? Just going and mentoring, Azam, mentor me. All right, I'll mentor you. What do you want to know about, mate? Beard trimming, beard oil, like what, what do you want to know? Right? So
not yet, maybe.
Yeah, but you get my point. So I think that's the key thing. First of all, is the patience and the ability to save, the ability to not need to go out all the time, not spend, sacrifice. It's that kind of core thing. Secondly, is you've got to really, really, really kind of, know your stuff, know your market, understand your consumer, and then refine your skills. Like honestly, guys, I've always had an interest in a few different areas. I'm literally sat here right now, like reading and learning and understanding new markets, new opportunities, new things, areas that I've never known about. So they're the key things, because there's no end goal, meaning or end destination, sorry. So you never stop fine tuning. The reason you don't see these guys stop training, Floyd Mayweather, whoever, the boxing nonstop, you're like, yeah, you've won all the fights, why are you still boxing? Because I'm going to have another fight, right? So it's the same thing with business. If you're continuously apply these things, one of the biggest issues we have is this lack of patience, this need for instant, I want it now, I want to be successful now, I've got to prove I'm successful now. And this is why we get caught in this phone, because we can get that quick hit. So we'd rather play the act of looking like we're doing something than persevering and doing it, And I used to always get mocked by my friends. Like, they were like, oh man, you're driving around in that banger, you never come out anyway, you never do anything, blah, 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 blah. But then fast track 5-10 years forward from that, they're all like, I wish we'd done what you did.
So how do you resist those temptations and following the sort of social norms? Like, you're about obviously money gives you a bit more, it gives you freedom essentially, doesn't it, to buy what you want, go wherever you want, do whatever you want. So how do you resist those temptations?
It's going back to even what I was saying earlier, which is about your why and what is it that's driving you to do what it is. If you're going to go into business, if you've got something that's really driving you and you really believe in, it's not just about the monetary gain. Actually, the monetary thing is very low. It's just a byproduct. It's about the purpose and the why and what you're doing. It's the same thing with this. Look, I have no problem with anyone who goes out, makes 50 grand a year, has a comfortable life, puts a bit of money away, buys a house and does the holidaying and things they want to do. Absolutely great. But then don't bother stressing yourself about, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do the other. So I've got no issue with anyone living the lives they want. But if you want to live a life of entrepreneurship and you want to be in business and you want to do those sort of things, then you've got to know you've got to know about sacrifice. And so you've got to be willing to give those things up, just as a prime example, guys, right? So, and I have no objective ever talking about myself or what I do. So the last few years, I've been in, lockdown mode. I've completely cut down on all sorts of, unnecessary expenditure because I knew this time's coming. So what will happen is, for a few years of not, driving around in Bugattis or whatever, which I've never driven around in a Bugatti, but you understand my point, right? Louboutins, right? I never bought any Louboutins, right? But, the point is, I don't know, have you seen that video on YouTube where the guy
the Louboutins
stood on my Louboutins?
Yeah.
I can't get it out of my head.
This is the Asdas.
That's what I keep saying. The Asdas, he's got the Asdas. So I've been on the Asdas, and the reason for that is because one thing I'll tell you about my experiences that I took from. When I was 22 years old, I remember looking back at the year before, and I was like, wow, if I'd done this, this, and this, I would have actually had this by now. And I'm actually grateful that I did these few things, because now at 22, I've got a few things that I never had before, right? So I made a pact with myself that every year on my birthday, I'm going to look back to the Azam before, the year before, and I'm going to thank him. I'm going to say, Azam, 25-year-old, 35, like I'm 40 next couple of weeks. I'm 40 in April. And I basically said, every year I'm going to go back and thank myself the year before for what you've given me, because I realized that the years pass very quick. You see, this is the whole thing about patience and perseverance, is being impatient tells us we need everything now, life's flying away, whatever. And of course, we can have a much deeper conversation about living in the moment and all the rest of it as well. However, there's nothing stopping you living in the moment and preparing for the future, right? So what I then decided to do was this thing where I would essentially thank myself for the previous year. So in these years coming up to this point now, where if you look at the 2000 crash, the 2008 crash, there's another one due now. In each one of those crashes, coincidentally, I happened to get into business. And so the 2000 crash, I got into the property market post that. The 2007-8 crash, I was in the property market, came out of that, went into the e-commerce world, you know, grew in that area. And so we're now at this stage. So what I've done is, you know, I've kind of said, look, you know, I want to be as liquid as possible so that when we get to this stage,
we're ready.
We're ready. There's acquisition opportunities. If there's whatever, you know, we're ready. And not even just the ready, like you need to have money, man, feed the kids. You should see the way my boy eats, bro. This guy's like, this guy's going to take me out. This guy's going to
So what is it in your opinion that is going to be the next area that you venture into?
So we all, I mean, look, as far as the kind of the plan going forward right now was Graftism was going to be one of the core projects that we would pursue going forward. Now, Graftism is way beyond gyms as a concept. What I wanted to do was create a lifestyle brand that had positive underlying values, that we could integrate positive activation alongside the stuff that everybody wants to do as a bit of fun. So what I mean by that is you can go to a great place, take your pictures, have a nice workout, do what you want to do. But because you're involved in this whole kind of community and kind of process, we can integrate other activation in that, which is, you know, stuff around mental health, around more positive behavior. So I'm writing a book at the moment, which is called Graftism, which talks about the value of hard work and the mindset that we need in this day and age. I want it to be really impactful and useful for the next generation coming up to understand what the real meaning of hard work is, and how we apply it and its benefits and how it impacts you beyond the actual job you do. So the gyms are just one element of the brand. And what I found was there are very few opportunities in this day and age where you can get people together. So in a mall, you know, in a restaurant, whatever, I mean, you don't go and start talking to random people, but the thing in the gyms you do. So the gyms are these great opportunities for us to bring people together. Once you have people's attention, you can tell people a lot of what you want to tell them, right? So, you know, you can promote positive, you know, culture, positive energy, and people see that in the gym that we have at the moment. So, you know, where we're in the society where people are moving less, you know, moving away, and it's less and less offline and less you know, people interacting and people meeting in person. So Graftism is meant to be gyms. It's meant to be lots of other elements that go beyond building out a kind of a lifestyle project that cultivates positive behavior and positive habits in this day and age. Beyond that, then we're looking at very specific tech-based projects. So we're developing a couple of new projects ourselves. So I own a tech business out in Portugal, which I got involved there about 5 years ago. So we will be developing projects that we feel and investing in projects that we feel are aligned with what is happening now, which is a lot of this, right? So remote working, you know, quick and efficient exchange of information, you know, in between business, in between people. So that's kind of where the direction that we'll be going in as far as kind of the new projects that we'll be moving into. You know, other than that, there'll always be the ongoing kind of investing and you know, property and investing in the, you know, in the markets and things like that. But the core projects that we'll be doing are going to be value add projects that are aligned with where people are going now. So even when you take the gyms haven't, you know, the gyms are still gyms, and we don't know how long they're going to be closed for or whatever. But it's just the way people want to experience at the gyms is changed.
just a quick question on that, actually. You clearly have your fingers in loads of different businesses, and that's why you're known as a serial entrepreneur, even though you may not like the term. It's so most people say whenever you watch any sort of lectures or even in you hear other entrepreneurs speak, they say, look, you got to be passionate about exactly what you want to be doing. You got to know the ins and outs of everything. How do you know the ins and outs of every little thing that you may have an investment in, or you may own, or I know you have e-commerce businesses, properties, food businesses, you have the gyms, and now you mentioned you have the technology business as well. People say you got to breathe the business day in, day out. Are you breathing all these different businesses day in, day out, or are you how are you managing this whole thing?
Yeah, so I think I mean, there's a couple of very important points for me to highlight here. That if you look at the at one end, you look at the portfolio of long-standing business people, like take Mark Cuban, for example. Just look at the number of companies he's involved in or he's started, etc. One very important thing for me to emphasize is every single project that I've delivered has been given years and years of independent, time, right? So, laser focused attention. And each project that has actually stemmed out of the next project is really some form of continuation of that business. So if you take property, I started in property. The way I started the New Stone business, which was selling paving slabs, was while I was developing property, we had this stipulation to put certain type of paving down because the property was listed. I went looking for this paving and I was getting all sorts of different prices and nobody was giving me the right kind of thing. And I was like, look, this doesn't make sense. So I then said, look, you just got to be able to sell this online, like you can buy a pair of shoes. So that stemmed from me having property knowledge. Of course, e-commerce was new and, I wanted to learn about something new and I had to because the market crashed. So I was no longer going to make any money from property at that time. So I had to diversify. I was forced into moving into a new area. Through that, we then learn a multitude of skills: distribution, branding, marketing. These are all skill sets that we developed that could be translated into another business. And so through that process, we learned more about customers, we learned more about business, we learned more about different things. So then if you go then to the business out in Portugal, all it was me acquiring a business that did all the stuff that I was paying for anyway to fulfill the services we needed within our own business. So that was e-commerce development, branding, marketing, performance marketing, app development, whatever it might be. And then what happened through that was that then, became its own little machine. Again, through us having different types of experience that we built over the years. So the answer to your question of running all those businesses, yes, you do breathe in and take in a lot from all the different businesses you do, but it's about people. No one's, unless you're a one-man show running your, for example, your dry cleaner by yourself or whatever, it's not possible to do that at that scale without great people. So the reason why my I can continue to build the operation is because God provides me with great people that, we build great relationships with and friendships with, and even, becomes like family. And we work collectively together to achieve the results we all want. So what I would say is it's not like my businesses are not shooting off in different directions. Everything we've done with the Graftism brand, we've done already before. We've taken experience that we've had through retail, through branding, through customer experience, through whatever, and we've brought all these things together. But yes, you need to have amazing people. It's about teams and it's about great people to be able to run business efficiently. And so a point about what, Brother Mahdi asked earlier, which was that, you've got to learn how to be good with people. I'll tell you something that I believe sincerely is that once upon a time, you used to have like the salesman who would have the information and he would tell you what you wanted and you buy the double glazing that he tells you, right? Now what happens is this guy comes and tells you need this double glazing. You go online, you do some research, you find you can get the double glazing for 10% of the price he's telling you it for, and you can get a better one, right? So we are now in a time and era where everything is transparent. People have access to knowledge. You have to be a legit guy in this time, right? Legit guy or girl. You have to be someone genuine, honest, sincere, and you have to care about people. If you don't care about people, people will find out and they'll know very quick. And that credibility in business is very, very important. But that credibility with consumers, with partners, with team members, etc., is very, very important. So upholding good values and character is key. So for me, I like people. It's just something maybe it's a problem, maybe I just like people. So I have great relationships. If you ever come and see it, just as an example, I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen me in Portugal in the summer. And, I was Philippe, who is basically my partner out in Portugal. I met him 2015. I was his best man at his wedding in 2019. That's the type of relationships we build. So you won't get anything done without having good relationships with people, and this also mindset is tied in with this get rich quick. I want it now, take and do what I can in the process, take it from anyone I can in the process. Why you see all these like Forex and make money, do this, make, whatever nonsense that you see online. There's no shortcut, credibility, good ethics, being good with people, thinking about what people want. That's kind of how you get things done.
And how do you manage your time between your business, your community, your family? Because if you've got so many things going on, so how do you manage all that and sort of stay grounded and give back to community as well?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, bro, it's about priority. You make time for everything that's a priority. So look, when it comes to business, you have to, and it's not something that I've done overnight, by the way. I've made all the mistakes you can possibly think of, and I'll probably keep making some, but you learn as you go along to become more efficient. So you realize, right, somebody else should be taking care of this, who knows that job better than me, who's more efficient than me. So one is that when it comes to your business operations, you
need a certain amount of trust, I'm assuming.
Of course you have to, man. And you can't, if you don't have that trust and you're not able to trust people, to work within your business or to work with you, or you can't look, you can sometimes have to have a mindset and a mentality that, okay, it's not going to be done at the Azam 100% standard, but if I've got to then build a project that is going to be good and operate what we want it to be at 85%, right? So at least I can get someone to do 85% of what I would do. But actually the key thing to the answer to your question is that one is that you have to have great people around you to make sure that you're not lumbered with everything. You're doing the things you should be doing. If you're doing things efficiently, so I am trying to get to a stage now where I do 4 hours of hardcore work a day. So I may be doing different things, but I'm doing 4 hours of very, very high level, high performance work. I can then do other little things around that. Anything that is not best suited to me, meaning I don't have the best expertise for it, or I'm not best suited to it, or it's something that I shouldn't be doing and I should be applying myself to something that requires my level of attention, then I make sure I'm doing that and someone else is doing the other job. Besides that, it's just priority, bro. Like, you want to make time for community, you want to make time for family, you do it, you find it, and you adjust accordingly. As an example, right now, this is important. I want to spend time talking to my brothers. I want to spend time sharing anything that may, God willing, benefit one person. But it's just priority. And again, I think we have a very sometimes warped opinion of time. We don't appreciate how much we can do. We look around us and we see other people and we think, right, that's how you live your life, not realizing that if you go and spend time with high performers, how they structure their routine, how much they get done. It's a mindset thing, man. It's just, what do you want? How much do you want? Like, do I want to get up and do cardio in the morning, or can I not be bothered? Do I see the benefit of that? Do I not? So look, man, it's just about what you want, really. You'll find a way.
It's clear that you've definitely found that good balance, because for those that do follow you on social media, you really have a deep love for your children, giving them the best things that they could ever have, loads of different experiences, and seeing you have that time for them and not losing yourself in your businesses and the money and all that kind of, all those other aspects, as many others have probably been lost in. I think that's something that's quite refreshing, and that's why a lot of people might have questions about, and seeing how you are able to actually balance that and how you'll be able to get the best out of all of these different aspects.
Bro, I mean, look, I'm far from perfect. I'm trying my best. I could probably make lots and lots of improvements in areas still, for sure. But one thing I'll say to you is that it boils down to priority, right? I mean, look, once we become aware of ourselves and we become comfortable with ourselves, and we can talk to ourselves and we can be real with ourselves, then we don't look to other things as a form of escapism. We understand its place. So as, I was asked earlier, how do you balance things, or how do you make time? It's knowing what's important, right? And so if you use business or you use money as a form of escapism, or it's a way for you to feel better about yourself or to run from reality or whatever it might be, or you are sad about certain things that are going on in your life, whatever, you know, there's a million and one scenarios, then yes, you'll get engrossed and tied up and obsessed in one area. You know, we have a hadith that tells us that 3 things will be weighty for you and give you credit post-death: sadqa jariyah, knowledge, and your children. And the children being the most weighty and the most valuable. So it's about your perspective on life, bro. Like, ultimately, man, life is flying. I'm like, you know, I don't feel it, but I'm 40. You know, I'm not going to live forever, no matter how healthy I stay, no matter what I do, no matter how many IV drips I drink, you know, or inject or whatever. And so, you know, it boils down to just kind of understanding where we're going. And I think this is the key thing. Even when you narrow it down to business, it's understanding, where are you going? Like, what is your objective? Like, who are you trying to help? What are you trying to serve? What are you going to do? Okay, you're going to make millions. What are you going to do with this millions? You're going to buy Lamborghinis. What then? Right? It's knowing where we're going. Like, this is why I say this word reality is, the reality is we're going to die, man. We're sat right now. Never in our wildest dreams did any of us ever think we'd all be confined to our houses in 2020 in the middle of the UK. Right, you know, with nowhere, you know, Corona's killing everyone and everything. Like, you know, we believe this. So ultimately, bro, the biggest gifts and the blessings that we have are our children. You know, I want to leave nice people on this planet that, you know, help others, that care for others, that you know, that serve the people around them. And so, you know, I have a responsibility to raise great humans before, or as good a humans as I can, before anything else. You know, I have a responsibility to provide for them. And actually business, you know, I'm never motivated by money. There's a very small period in my life where I, you know, was influenced by, you know, society or peers and thought, you know, buying this and buying that is important. I have nothing against anything. Like, you know, buy whatever you want, you know, but ultimately it's intention, it's motivate, you know, what motivates you. So, you know, business for me, I feel, is a vehicle. Imam Ali alayhi salam says that everything over and above your requirements, you're a treasurer for someone else. And so, you know, when I read this hadith, I was like, wow, like I can understand when Allah gives you this opportunity to be, you know, an entrepreneur, or you can earn more money than you need. Like, you clearly, you work for the corporation of God. You have a responsibility to serve people and to help people. And even with social media, guys, I mean, I'm just, you know, I can only talk about the few things that I know or the few things that I do. But, you know, if you follow me on social media, you'll see that I use it as a vehicle to share knowledge, because I believe that this is what God wants me to do, right? You know, it's, you know, and I believe that there's a need for it. I believe that people need perspective and they need to see things that are different. Like, you know, half the stuff I see online, I'm like, bruv, I'm nearly 40 and it's making my head spin. I can't imagine what it's doing to younger people who, you know, don't quite understand what this even is. You know, so it's priority, bro. It really is. Look, man, I say to everybody, specifically, I can imagine the community and the group of people that will watch this, is that you have to keep your connection with God. It's not about being perfect, and it's not about whatever. None of us are, man. We're fallibles. That's the reality. But keep your connection with God, and everything that you need to do becomes quite clear, and everything that's important becomes quite clear, and being comfortable with yourself becomes easier because you realize that God's put that value in every one of us. You see, the thing is, for me, bro, I you know, it is, you know, we have this saying like, love yourself. This guy loves himself, for example, right? But loving yourself is very necessary. And actually loving ourselves is what happens more so when we become closer to Allah, because we understand, you know, like, wow, like, look at this opportunity, this value, this life He's given us. So I'm doing my best to prioritize the things that I believe I'm supposed to, because the reason for this is because I've understood that when you go against yourself, you don't find happiness, right? You know, you can drink alcohol, you may feel temporarily, you know, like you're feeling great, you know, but you're going to have lots of problems post consumption, right? So gambling, the same, whatever it might be, that are things that we do against ourselves as a form of escapism, as a form of running from who we are. And that's primarily because we stay disconnected with God, right? You know, so yeah, man, the long and short of it is, I feel, you know, I'm not amazing, I'm or anything, but I feel that there are certain things that we do that either bring us more satisfaction and happiness and contentment and peace, you know, which is what it's about. It's about feeling that peace. And there's stuff we can get up to, and there's ways we can think. There are people we can be around. There's things that we can convince ourselves we want that bring us more discomfort and unhappiness than you can start to imagine.
And do you think your mindset and your approach to business and to sort of people and the positive is sort of defined by your faith and, you know, the values that your religion instills on you? Does that play a big part in your life?
1,000%. One, you know, it's there's no question about it. You know, look, for me, when I look at the examples and the history that we review, the lessons and the depth within those lessons on how to live a supreme life, right? And how to, you know, perform at a high level intellectually, spiritually, in business. It's all there, right? It's all there. I'll give you an example, right, guys? So I never used to read, and I started reading. When I started reading all these books. When I started reading all these books were telling me things that I'd already learned through studying Islam or attending lectures or whatever. So I'm like, there's this new 5 a.m. club. Get up in the morning, meditate, do some yoga, be up before the crack of dawn, you know, be up before everybody else, have some peace. Yeah, we've been doing this for 1,400 years. What are you chatting about? You know, so you know, this is my point. Like that, the more and more. So I have the ambition, by the way, guys, and I'll tell you this on, you know, on the podcast. If somebody else wants to do it, they can do it. You know, I just want the message to get out there. But I had this vision to create a Netflix series which would involve high performance Muslims, all backgrounds, you know, Muslims from all over the world. Let's say Khabib and footballers and whatever, and they would carry out simple Muslim practices that we would then show a direct synergy with all of this self-help stuff that's going on, and which is in America alone, $11 billion they spent on self-help books. So whether it's intermittent fasting, which is now the biggest thing. So for example, like I've got into biohacking recently. Most of the biohacks, by the way, they're all in Islam as well. But cut a long story short, you know, I feel like, I don't know, you lot aren't, maybe you're old enough or not old enough, but we used to have this show called Goodness Gracious Me, and there was a guy in it that used to say, also Indian. Yeah. Used to say, yeah. I feel like that guy right now. But basically, you know, we have, so that's the thing. Look, when you look at some of the issues we have in society today, whether it's around mental health, whether it's suicide, whether it's depression, whatever it might be, when you dig deeper into the underlying reasons for this, and then I look at what are the solutions for this, how do you escape this? And then as I look at those methods of staying away from those, you know, unfortunate sort of mental or physical or practical financial circumstances, yeah, right, you know, I just find all the answers. I've always found all the answers in Islam. So I've said to myself, look, you know, when I did something that was harmful to me, Islam said, don't do it. Right? When I did something that was good for me, Islam said, do it. You know, so that's kind of where I've understood. And one thing that I will say to you guys is that I am someone that is less involved in the mindset of rituals that are just rituals or cultism or I'm this group or that group. I'm about extracting the essence. So for example, when I leave the day of Ashura, I have spent 10 days absorbing the peak of dedication, commitment, sacrifice, you know, of love and respect and you know, the way one person can treat another person and so on and so forth. That I've come away with these practical, things that I can implement, you know, that I can take in my life and say, right, what can I do? How can I treat my kids better? How can I treat my brother better? You know, how can I treat the guy who did something wrong to me better? Right? You know, these are the things, you know, that I take away from it. And it's, even to the extent, and I'm always someone that goes on about this, is the fact that, you know, we specifically come from a group of people that, really look up to female figures, and how, Khadija, served and helped the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Zainab's role, and Bibi Fatima, and so on, that like, it's how I raise my daughter, right? So, I'm like, now you're supposed to be like champions, it's like, this is what we've been told, that women have this capability to deliver all these different things, whether it's entrepreneurship or whether it's this or whether it's that. So, yeah, it plays a huge part, a huge part in my life. And I see the benefit, and it's crazy. I'll just tell you, look, I say whatever little bits I can because of whatever implements in my life. But you were talking about routine, and you were talking about how do you manage things and how do you deal with work. It's funny because when I started looking at Salah, I used to break up certain activities through my day to say, these are these windows that I get. And then when I started learning about all this biohacking and meditation and all that stuff, I started realizing that the highest level of meditation that I could achieve was during Salah. And it was at that moment that actually doing, like, listening to Headspace, and I'm like, that's not all that good, right? Like, this is even better, so which is kind of what I was doing, to be honest. When I was on Headspace, I got a bit carried away with it. But the point is that, so we have everything there. It's all for our own good. God wants us to win. We know why we often move away from it and not understand, the value and the benefits. But I've to this date not found anything that contradicts me having the best possible life I can have and the best possible relationships I can have.
So you mentioned that look, clearly we see throughout your social media and in the conversation now, all the references you make back to the religious side of things. Is there one key inspirational figure for you within Islam that really says to you, okay, do you know what? This is what dedication is. This is why I get up every morning, and this is the example that I need to follow. And also, what for a lot of the people watching that are trying to be the legit guy now, because you said, look, in business, nowadays, because there's so much transparency, you need to be a legit guy. You need to have the morals and values that portray you in light, so that people trust you and you become a trusted partner in business with them. What do you recommend for kids kids or adults to actually go out and read in this respect, from an Islamic point of view?
Yeah, so I think, look, man, I mean, whether it's reading or whether they find the right sources and the right lectures online, if you want to consume through audio, you want to consume through video. But the key thing for me, and if you take role models, we just have so many from the female and male perspective, and there are so many individual scenarios, whether you look at how, Imam Ali alayhi salam would be just in his dealings with people, and how he would be fair to, Imam Hussein, forgiving Hur, there are so many powerful lessons to take from that, help you in individual circumstances, and so I see lots and lots of motivating examples, even down to, there's a hadith of Imam Bakr alayhi salam, who was, doing work out in the desert heat, and then one of the locals came to him and said, what's this madness, like chasing the dunya, working in this weather? And he responded with him explaining to him that this is something that the Prophet, peace be upon him, recommended. And so, there are so many that we can take from it. And I think if you were to say to me, Azam, okay, like, great, these people did this and they did that and the other. Look, nothing makes any sense unless you have a destination, you have a why. If I have an objective that I want to create hundreds of gyms around the world that end up making people's lives better through human interaction, and they have better mental health, they are happier, they have more relationships, they have better relationships because of these great hubs that we cultivated around the world, through which we promoted good behavior and good values, right? I have to work towards that end goal, but I know what the end goal is, right? So I can work towards it. I know I'm going to die, right? And so I can either believe nothing's going to happen to me when I die, or I'm going to believe that there is a life after death. I choose to believe that option. And so what then happens is the choices we make are influenced by where it is we're going. The problem we have in a lot of cases is people don't often know where they're going, right? they don't often know why they want something. Oh, you want a car. What do you want the car for? I want to look good. In front of who? The guy doesn't even care. He doesn't even know you, right? You know, so my key point in terms of understanding that is knowing where it is you want to go. And then if you know where you want to go, and I mentioned this point about mentors earlier, that if I am aiming for a destination, I'd like to end up in paradise. I've heard it's quite a nice place, right? So I'm like, well, who's in paradise? So I went to a Sunni mosque and I went to a Shia mosque and I went everywhere else, and they all keep saying Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Shabab al-Jannah, right? So I'm like, okay, well, they're definitely over there. So I'll keep a bit of a check with them, and I'll make sure that I know what's happening over there, so I can, you know, potentially end up where they ended up. Because it's the same thing as if I wanted to develop a tech business, I go and speak to a tech mogul. If I want to get into this industry, I go and speak to this mentor and that mentor. So these are our ongoing mentors that allow us to do more in life than just the, you know, the you know, just the spiritual or just the physical, whatever. Going to the point that you made about the transparency, the values, the ethics, etc. Again, it boils down to this: what do you value as success? Do you value success as just money? Do you value success as whatever? My cousin Z, he posted something earlier where there was some sort of study done, and they were saying that, do we judge a country's success based on its GDP, or do we base it on, you know, the population's happiness or the number of unicorns it has or whatever, right? And, you know, the happiness element is quite interesting. Like, how happy is your population? That's got to be some indicator of your country's success. So I think as far as knowing the outcomes, you're not always going to necessarily get, you know, when you go into business, you don't always get your return on day one. Sometimes they say you're going to make a loss, you're going to make a loss, you're going to make less, you're going to make money in the, you know, final year. You might fail in 3 businesses and eventually get your success in the final business. You know, I see life in the same sort of way. Like, you know, the real return on investment, we don't get here. We get some of it here. I don't doubt it in any way, shape or form. But the big return on investment is one that comes post-death. So I think in whatever you're doing, it has to be weighed up in that context. If I'm like, look, I just want everything now, I want hundreds of billions now, and I'm going to do everything I can, and I'll kill everyone for it. Then the reality is that, you know, I'm going to conduct myself in a certain way. If on the contrary, I think, no, like doing honest, sincere work, sincere business, being good to people will gain trust, will gain me credibility, and allow me to do the right thing, etc. And I might not make as much money, but then I'm going to get a further reward down the line. And if you look at the sacrifices, and again, for us, this is one thing I always emphasize to the youth, like, you know, the sacrifice Imam Hussein made, go into the depth of what drove him and motivated him to do that. You know, and if you can extract even a microscopic amount of his motivation and what drove him and what was his purpose to go out and do that, and actually what his end result and reward was, and what his position is, and etc., then you start understanding the value of risk, reward, sacrifice, reward, you know, and you start understanding these things. And so you're then able to implement those things in your real day-to-day life. So if you look at how he handled situations, like when I mentioned with horror, like, you know, you're able to see that you don't just get victory by being the bad guy. You don't gain victory always by going the cutthroat, ruthless, stealing, you know, way. And this is why we're blessed to have, you know, so many of these types of examples around us. You know, and I'm a fair guy. Like, wherever anybody else is due credit, wherever anyone else has done something great, there's some great human beings. Look, the Quran tells us that in the day of judgment, there'll be 3 groups of people. One on the right with the book of deeds in the right hand, light in front of them, they'll be joyous. Group on the left, book of deed in the left hand, dark faces that have failed. And then you've got a group in the middle who are like the elite, many from the olden days, not less from the new times, the modern times, you know, and they're like the elite group, right? And so the thing is, like, for us, it's really understanding destination. That's our biggest problem. You know, we think that we're here and this is it. And then we'll get caught up, and then it shrinks. You know, if you want to expand your horizon, in every way, then you've got to think as big as possible. You know, there's no unicorn, there's no company in this world that is bigger than getting into paradise. And I think we've got to understand that. And life flies, boys, flies. Like it's a blink. You're 20, then you're 30, then you're 40, and boom. So it's kind of just staying aligned on that journey, knowing whatever. And just sorry, brother, to kind of just make one very quick point. The way you stay motivated to do that is the connection you have with Allah makes you realize that there is nothing you have. Bro, everybody I've spoken to that has like a net worth of over $500 million has always said the same sort of thing. When you ask them, how have you achieved your success? And they will say like, oh, we could, something along the lines of, we could see something other people couldn't see. And there's no qualification or no type of training or no type of programming that you can do to see things. This is a gift that comes from God, right? You got the opportunity to see something that, or you had a vision of some sort of opportunity that somebody else didn't have, right? The connection you have constantly with Allah enables you to stay in check with what it is you are doing in your life. It gives you that confidence to take chances, to take risks, because you put your faith in Him. You also know that everything you're doing is very limited in reality. You have very little influence over what's happening. He's making it all happen. He's making it all possible. And so when you want to have the strength to take risks, you've got to rely on Allah, not as much yourself. When you want to, when you want to think about things about, from a context of, do I want barakat in what I'm doing, blessings or a good return in what I'm doing, then, try and keep a good connection with God in that process, because, the probability of you, look, you'll always get what's right for you, right? So if it didn't work out, it wasn't right for you, but you never know that unless you know that it's coming from God, and you'll never be able to deal with it unless bro, I've took big hits. I was supposed to. Every time I took one, I took the lessons, I learned from the failures, I learned from the mistakes. I said, Alhamdulillah, God, you are taking me wherever you're taking me. I'll soldier it out. And I've come out 10 times better. So that's, ultimately what I would say is that, if you ride the journey with Allah, by your side, and your everything is aligned with what you feel, because it all comes from that source. So in simple terms, stay connected with the source. Simple.
That's a perfect way to summarize the whole discussion. I know at the end of it all comes from Allah, and that's our sustainer right at the end. So there's so much more to talk about, bro. But I know, so we want to save it for the next time that you're going to come on as well, inshallah. And then inshallah we'll have it in person, and we'll have chai there for you as well, and we'll keep you entertained in wherever we are as well. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out. I know it's a crazy period of time where you're with family and you're still concentrating on your businesses whilst you're at home as well, and taking time out to speak to us, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much indeed for that. We're going to link your Instagram down below as well in the description. So make sure whoever's watching the podcast, go give Brother Azam's page a follow. You'll find a lot of inspiration there. I certainly have, and I'm sure the other guys on the podcast have as well. And we'll make sure that that we bring Brother Azam back, and we'll have a lot more to talk about going forward as well. So finally, one final thanks to Brother Azam, Raza, and Mahdi as well. And
thank you so much.
Inshallah, we'll see you next time as well.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so much.